Hello everybody, I'm Stacey with Stacey's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I'm here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. So today we're going to take a look at conscious parenting. But we can't really take a look at conscious parenting without taking a look at conscious adulting. Then we get to looking at conscious adulting, we look at the evolution, the progress thereof. So if you like that's our topic today, please hit the like and subscribe button below. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you that I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not even a consultant for parenting, but I have a friend on Instagram and Facebook who is. Her name is Kim Rochelle, so you can check her out at Kim Rochelle Consulting if you're interested in something like that. What I am is a life coach. I love working with teenagers, and I do work with teenagers, but I specialize, they are our future, you know. I specialize in addiction, codependency, and grief. But underneath all of that lies a desire for healing and healthy relationships, as well as development of spiritual and soul consciousness. So if you or anyone you know needs help in any of those areas, then please feel free once again to look me up at staceyforlife.com. I also write a blog. I've committed to a monthly blog on this page, and the one for this month, November, is called Debanking the Perfect Life, and that's going to fit into the perfect life, right? So that's going to fit into what we're talking about today. So again, I hope you've liked and subscribed to this video. I want to thank Lynette. We're going to talk about the spiritual parenting, or conscious parenting, but I want to also thank Jennifer as we're talking about conscious adulting. I love when I ask for topics on Topic Tuesday when I get these and I'm able to tie them together, because it's all about that evolution, because we're all children, we're all parents. So when we look at this in the evolution, we have to realize where this first all started. And a lot of these problems start with the communication. It's that we didn't learn to communicate. Our grandparents, were taught that they were to be seen and not heard. So how well do you think that the communication evolved from that? Not so well. We still have people that, have problems with communicating, especially our own values. We have problems because we've gotten these mixed messages about conceitedness and then esteem. And a lot of us haven't developed esteem through for whatever reason, even as adults. So what we want to do is to help our children in conscious parenting develop esteem. Because now we're, with people becoming more conscious of these things. In the past, people just did what their parents did, right? But there came a time when people decided to not do what their parents did. This can happen in cases like where, say that a parent has a person has a baby and they abandon that baby, just leave that baby. And the grandparents or whoever ends up raising the baby, whatever, they abandon the baby. Well, this baby is then when they get to be a parent, they're going to say, oh, I'm never going to do that to my child. Hence, they may become codependent and enmeshed. Then when they become codependent and enmeshed, their child is going to say, oh, I am never going to suffocate my children. I'm going to let my children be who they are. So then they're going to do something different with their children. They're going to be like a little more hands-off with their child. And then their child's going to feel like they're not there, that they didn't, they were lacking. So it's just a part of our progression. When we can see it that way, that it's all designed for our right and perfect healing, then we can let go of the judgment of that. But even if we can't just say intellectually, I let go of the judgment of this. I love my parents because they're my parents, and I just let go of the judgment of that. That's not how it works, because you were hurt. You had these different feelings that you didn't even know how to feel because nobody expressed them to you, or you weren't allowed to express them yourself, or if they did express them to you, they were theirs. And sometimes in the codependent and mesh relationships, we have to be careful. When I'm talking and working with people on codependence, we have to be careful. There's a big deal of projection. Projection can come to people at many different ways, but in codependence, what happens is that when people are wounded in their codependence and they're trying to protect their children, what they do is they in turn are still hurting their children. Say that if these children grew up and they suffered failure after failure after failure, and they want their children not to experience failure, they're still setting their kids up for failure, because then we're all, as human beings, see, it would be nice if in the perfect life they said they all failed and then they grew from it, And it was the happy way for a little while, and then that people come through another obstacle, and then they have to overcome that, and then that's okay. That would be the realistic way of the perfect life, because life is perfect. It's not realistic to think that you're just going to go through life and everything's going to be perfect all day, every day, all the time, in every way. That's just not realistic at all. We all have these challenges that develop our esteem, and sometimes they are called failures. So when we're afraid of our children failing, when we're afraid of our children doing this, when we're afraid of our children doing that, then we're projecting fears onto them, and they feel and sense that energy. Now, if we can share our experience with them, that's one thing. Some of our experiences are cool to be shared with our kids, so that they don't have us up high on these pedestals, that when the divorce happens or whatever, then their lives are shattered because they thought that they had these perfect parents, because we idolize our parents, let's face it. When we're born, we depend on them to take care of us. Then as we start getting older, we start depending on ourselves more to take care of us, although we may be ill-equipped. That's usually when I come in, because these kids are tired of listening to their parents and they know better. And so it's good to have a third party that comes in and is able to examine their feelings and teach them and show them to have other feelings and to have different expressions, because different expressions and different feelings equal different results. Hence our consciousness, but we have to be willing to think, to problem solve, to communicate those things. So in one part of the topic, this is the message that I got about that. And this is where I go with it. It's easier sometimes when I'm talking, well, it's always easier, not just sometimes, when I'm talking one-on-one with people, because I get their energy and I sense exactly who they are. And I have this connection with them. So this person expressed to me that they weren't, they were afraid if people knew who they really were, they wouldn't like them. And I believe that that's a fear that so many people have, is that they hide themselves. Because, that generational thing is people are seen and not heard. And then when people could communicate, and now we're coming out communicating all over the world with all the medias. So my response to this person when they said this, because I know this person is a loving person. And by all means, I don't see that fear, but they shared that with me. And I think that it's okay that I share it, because they said they wanted me to do the topic on it. So my answer to this was that we are all on a journey. Your journey is amazing, because that's the thing is when we are little kids and we start coming up with this perfect life, we're looking at all these little kids around us who seem to have a perfect life and we don't. And we don't know that they're looking around thinking that other people have a perfect life and they don't. See, we don't understand this, because that's what we don't understand when we don't understand humanity. But humanity understands that we are all connected together. So it says, yes, people would love you if they knew you. I love you, and I think we hold back who we are in that fear, because though we are valuable, we have not been able to communicate it with ourselves and others. You are a rock star. So we don't know how to communicate our value, hence other people don't see it, because also we've been told not to be conceited, we're downplayed, we've been taught to downplay things within ourselves, and yet to find that harmony or balance, so to speak, in that, we have to be willing to look at the old ways and to forgive the old ways that we thought, about things, and to be able to forgive those people who we thought had wronged us, when really they were just doing the best that they could, or not, but it doesn't matter, because we experienced what we experienced. And when we get to be adults, you see, we can keep carrying those scars, or we can start healing our scars from those things. And it wasn't most of the time anyone's intention to hurt anyone. They all tried to do better. Maybe the mom who didn't parent her child, who abandoned her child, might have been an abusive person, or they were ill-equipped. Maybe they just didn't know, and so they left that baby with someone who would take care of them. And so when we can look expansive and look at our wounds and say, I felt neglected, I felt rejected, I felt this, then we can quit projecting onto others, if that makes sense. Because when we're projecting, we're trying to keep people from feeling that feeling, but maybe we're going to an extreme. and we put ourselves in that fear. That's where our fear comes from, because what I get to see is I get to see adults being fearful to when their kids are growing up and trying to make these changes. The adults are fearful, and the adults did a good job. They still did a good job, even if they were running off of that fear, but they have to let go mentally to where these kids can fail and learn their own way of life rather than being controlled. See, we get to look at that control issue within ourselves about, why do I have to control this? Why am I fearing this? Because of my own fear of failure, because of my own fear of imperfection. But we have to realize that they're about to grow up and leave and separate, and that we have to let that go. We have to let them fail. And then we have to support them when they fail and say, I'm sorry that happened. It happens sometimes, and better luck next time, and all of this. And, go reward them with a coffee or ice cream, when they fail, and do the same when they, achieve, when they're licking their wounds, because we all want that friend. How do we want to be treated as an adult? When we fall on our asses, there's somebody who says, let's go have a cup of coffee and discuss it, Or do we want somebody to braid us and say, I don't understand why you failed. I don't understand why this happened. How did this happen? And blah, 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 blah. Which one do you think is going to be more effective? The conscious parenting is exactly what it says. The conscious adulting is exactly what it says. It's about being able to use our minds for ourselves. I'll read you something else, another bumper sticker. But before I read that, I just wanted to express that if we don't heal, we bleed, on the people that hurt us. That's another bumper sticker. On the people that didn't hurt us, yeah. And grabbing my phone, I messed that up. If we don't heal from the pains from the past, we're going to bleed on people who didn't hurt us. So that's what I'm saying. And it could be our own children. So this other bumper sticker quote that I was going for when I messed that up is this one. This one wasn't written by my mom, but my mom shared it, and so many other women did it, because it's a pretty common feeling that I think that parents have. But here it is. It says, to my children, I'm sorry for all the unhealed parts of me that in turn hurt you. It was never a lack of love for you, only a lack of love for myself. My response to that, to my mom's quote, and some other people's, is that I love you, Mama. We all work together to evolve. No perfect parents or kids, but at the same time, we all are. We are a mirror. We all grow, evolve with each other through lifetimes, learning more each time. We were handpicked, sort of. So it's those things that happen that we get to learn and grow and evolve from. When we start realizing as an adult, maybe I couldn't control this as a child, but then we get conscious and we realize maybe people would like me, I like the bumper sticker that used to be like, when I go into a room, I used to wonder if people liked me. But now I walk into a room and I wonder if I like them. But then we even evolve from that, because that's where I'm at now, as I went from the one where I wonder if they like me, I'm scared, and then I went to the one where I wonder if I like them, how are they going to be? And then I've evolved to, yippee, I'm going to the party, or wherever. I'm going to the event. I wonder what I'm going to learn, and so that's where I'm at now when I do this, and that's where you can be. When I'm working with these young people, oftentimes they think that people are thinking certain things, well, even older people. Sometimes we think that people are thinking certain things about us. And really, that's our own thoughts about ourselves sometimes that we have to work on. That's where this healing that I'm talking about comes from. That's where this consciousness comes from, because I had to explain, well, do you know that's a judgment? When you think that people are judging you, you're actually judging them, because half the time other people aren't even thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. So you're actually judging them because they probably aren't thinking a thing about you, and you've already made up your mind that they are thinking about you. So in a way, that's where we get into selfishness and self-centeredness. As parents, we get to choose to do things differently. We get to choose to teach our kids to think differently, rather than buying into those things, letting them be a victim. I worked for the school district, and some kids would go to school already feeling like a victim because their parents felt like victims, and so their parents would express this onto them. Here we end up with that generational trauma. These things can come from generational trauma. They can come from societal issues, about how society treats people. It can come from what we're exposed to in our home. We don't exactly know how all these things come about. And sometimes you're raising kids and you're like, I didn't raise my kids to act like that. We don't know where it's coming from. So what it's linked to is DNA. I've actually heard that when we actually heal, we're healing the future DNA. So when we start working on changing these cycles that happen, these patterns that come up, through our lifetimes, that they just keep repeating through generations, that when we work on healing that, then we can begin to, really have that even more consciousness. And I think that's why we're talking about consciousness so much in the 2020 and everything else, that all this is evolving to bring about a higher and better consciousness. Some people are looking at this, oh, this is awful, this is, and then other people are like, I know something's going on and it's bigger than me, and that's an expansion of consciousness. There are parts, like in the polarities that I was talking about, there are parts that, may not be so pleasant, but then there's parts that we have the opportunity to grow, and that's usually in consciousness and healing. The earth is healing. There's so much that's on a healing spree right now. So, as I said, I worked security for the schools, and I would see these kids come in. I would have to get them out from under chairs and out of lockers and stuff like this, and I had to restrain them and take them to the office, and stuff. But wouldn't it be nice if, instead of handling things those way, because I know that at the school that I worked for, they were on a deadline for these state tests and stuff like this, but if we weren't worried about deadlines for state tests and we were just talking about consciousness and kindness of how we treat one another, when these kids would be hurting, instead of being an example and the teacher being disgusted with them and the class, unhappy with them, what if they were to be taught from the teacher, her leadership skills were to be taught to say, honey, what's wrong with you? How can we help you today? What is this that we're doing? And is there a way that we can solve this problem, rather than, just flipping out over these kids with the patients? Of course, then we go back to the teacher probably has the unhealed wounds too, in this case. But if we started teaching consciousness, I believe that that's where our highest evolution is going to come from. That's when people are going to get that meditation, that gift of being in the present and knowing that they can solve problems, that they don't have to depend on a government, that they don't have to depend on a system to solve these problems, that we all in our consciousness can solve these problems as a collective consciousness. That when we can learn to respect other people's viewpoints as part of that consciousness, to be able to take back and forth. Where did we learn to, that some people are right and some people are wrong, that there's a perfect life and that there's a not perfect life? There is, but there's not, because that's part of how this world works. That is life on life's terms. We couldn't have gratitude without grief. And while the grief is heart-wrenching and sad, the gratitude could be joy-filled. Don't downplay the gratitude, and so we're coming into that season. And we can find things still yet to be grateful for as long as we're still here, and so, as I always say, if you or anyone needs help, then please, I would give you 30 minutes of my time. I can pray with you, I can meditate with you, we can do, those type of things to help you get centered and get focused, so that you realize this isn't a bad world at all. It's not. I can help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspective. One time isn't going to fix you, but if one time holds you and gives you the breath to make it to the next day, then that'll be good. The next week, because we don't need to make at this time permanent decisions over temporary, times. What you're going through right now is just temporary. If you're willing to seek a solution, seek consciousness, or willing to look deeper at why am I feeling this way, and understand that there's a good side to that too. See, once we do the healing, We see more good. Those things that hurt us, that we're afraid of, that we project onto other people, our kids, our loved ones, that we don't want, once we learn to look at the good in those opportunities, then we're able to smile and live lighter in a place of consciousness where we can share honestly and openly without shame and fear of people not liking us. So, I hope that this video was helpful and that I haven't hung you out. I encourage you to be honest, to dig deeper. Why am I afraid that people won't like me if I'm authentically me? And, I know that the person who asked me that is a real and authentic person. And I should say she should just let herself go. Maybe she needs some work on communication. And I don't know what your need may be. Sometimes you just need your work on your communication to know that your value is good. She's just at a crossroads, of embracing herself even a little bit more. Because we weren't born embracing we were born embracing ourselves, but through the programming, through those parents that we thought were our gods, and then them debunking that idea. Everything is going to get debunked, but we can build everything back up ourselves, so that we are of our own stories. We are the person listed at the credits at the end of our own stories. We have ourselves to thank for our own stories, the way that we choose to tell it in the end. When we go to tell our kids about how we healed from our wounds, and this is why we have these ideas and what we don't want for them, but that we don't want it for them. We're not sharing our pains as a part of codependency for the kids to heal us. We are trying to heal our future generations. So I hope that this video has been helpful to you, and I want to thank you so much for your time as always. Your time is valuable. You are valuable, and I appreciate your being here. So I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Think about what you want for Tuesday's topic, because I'll be posted on Facebook. If you don't follow me on Facebook, you can follow me. I'm Stacey Renee is my personal page on Facebook, just Stacey Renee. Or I'm Stacey for Life. Stacey's Organizing and Decorating for Life. Stacey's Organizing and Decorating for Life on Facebook. I'm Stacey for Life on my webpage. And you can find me on other social media, Stacey Renee or Stacey Renee 8 on Instagram. If you have any questions or concerns or need to contact me, I appreciate it. And until next week, I wish you much peace and love. And once again, I want to thank you. Bye.